Anyway, today's a milestone for the Washington State Jewish Historical Society because we are thrilled to launch Hero Washington, our new oral history platform. And our newly launched website, which will house our entire oral history program, digital exhibits, and everything else that you can think of, all the resources in one place. Finally, we're just thrilled to have you do some time looking at the new website and exploring and engaging and volunteering and everything that you can do. But before we continue, we want to take an interactive minute. Because oral history is not just about listening, it's about creating. And we would like you to turn to someone perhaps that you don't know or haven't come with, ideally, and to spend a minute, that's like 30 seconds each, I know it's quick, answering a couple questions of your choice, or a topic of your choice, but maybe someone that you wish you had heard the voice of, someone that you wish you remembered or would like to remember now for the recording and why, that question, or something that has happened in your past to bring you to today. In your ethnic past, your Jewish past, your cultural past, a story that has impacted your life. So that's very quick order for 30 seconds each, but we'll start you now and go interactivity.
That man, I don't know.
I would like to Roy, left LA.
The Mosler is part of your family. No, I knew the Mosler. I knew. Well, my mom was a Boy Scout leader.
Maybe I want to do
All you hear about is this nigga. She was really like wild.
She was born in the mom said born in the wrong
Okay, 10 seconds.
Did you talk to any of your parents at any time in life? Yeah, what year?
I feel like there probably wasn't much different.
Okay, everyone, I love this. I love this. See how hard it is to stop talking? This is amazing. And this is what, this moment, this exchange, is exactly what Hero Washington is about. So you've made new friends, you've heard stories that you haven't. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, stop. This launch, of course, comes at a critical time when Jewish history, identity, and voices must not only be protected, but they must be amplified. And that's why we have the tools now with the Hero Washington launch to have an inspiring and preserved memory. Of course, we'd be remiss in not thanking the people in the room that, all of you really, everyone in the room should be thanked, and I appreciate all of you. But the Washington State Jewish Caucus for helping bring this program to life, and we're honored to have Representative Roger Goodman here. Thank you. Thank you for your support and your voice. We'll also hear from Senator Jesse Solomon in a video that he recorded using our new platform, straight from Germany. So we'll hear him from his family vacation in Germany talking to us. And of course, a great big thank you goes to Jennifer Saunders, who's here from, she's the Washington State Historical Society and Museum leader. and we're thrilled to have her support, her guidance, and her mentorship. Thank you. And of course, the incredible WSJHS staff, incredible. Your passion for this is beyond, and you're appreciated. And our board members, many are here today, and we're so appreciative with our leadership, with our board president, Mimi Rosen, our executive committee, and we're just extremely appreciative. Thank you. And basically, together we're building something lasting. We're building a legacy of listening, remembering, and honoring the voices of our past and our present. And you'll hear from many others. Thank you for being here. Oh, and it's now my time to introduce Representative Roger Green.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here, a privilege to be here, actually. I didn't know anything about the Jewish Historical Society until someone named Lisa Kranzler reached out, and now it's impossible not to know about the Jewish Historical Society. But I'm very pleased. First of all, I want to welcome you on behalf of the Jewish Caucus of the Washington State Legislature. I think there are only 7 of us at this point. There were 11 at one time, including Tana Sen, who is no longer in the legislature, but Lisa Wellman, representing this area, is also. I want to acknowledge Senator Rebecca Saldana, who is here, and also Representative Janet Zahn, who represents this area as well. Are there any other elections here I don't want to forget? Okay. So this was good timing, because not in this legislative session, but in the last legislative session before we had a real budget crisis, which we had to deal with now, we were able to secure $320,000 in the state budget for this oral history project. So this is the kind of thing where I kind of wander around the House floor and I remind the chair of the committee, hey, remember that oral history project? And I just bug him. It's sort of a little art form. Great. But it's so important to preserve our cultural heritage, particularly in this area. And just so pleased to have taken the steps necessary to set up this oral history project. I have a personal connection to all of this, as each of us do. Of course, we all have our own oral histories, but I think of I would love to have heard my great-grandfather's voice, my mother's grandfather, Edward J. Bromberg, who was the very first Jewish legislator in the state of Massachusetts. He was elected in 1906 to the Massachusetts State Senate. I happened to be elected in 2006, 100 years later, to the Washington State Legislature. And his wife, my great-grandmother Henrietta, couldn't handle it because he was so harshly discriminated against in the legislature that he only served one term. But he really was a civic leader. He was on the Boston City Council and so forth. Very interesting, when he passed away, the headline of the Boston Herald, it was the Boston Herald at the time, said, Edward J. Bromberg, Jew, passes away. So that's kind of, 100 and so years ago, that's kind of what it was like. But I would love to have heard his voice, his oral history, what it would be like to be Jewish in Boston at the turn of the last century. But I think, as Lisa was discussing with me, maybe I'll do some of the oral history on his behalf, because I do want to do one of these recordings. My grandfather, on my father's side, I would love to hear his story as well. My grandfather was a successful industrialist in the mid-20th century, and was president of the United Jewish Appeal at the time. Some of you may know, it was the national philanthropic organization, helping to bring Jews who had been displaced and were in Shanghai during the Second World War, bringing them to the West Coast. Some of you may know that story. And the photograph that I have on the wall of my office in the Capitol of my grandfather with about 10 or 11 other Jewish business leaders in this country with Harry Truman in the Oval Office in 1948. And they said to him, you're not going to win this election. He was running against Tom Dewey. And they said, you need to travel across the country. You need to do a whistle-stop tour and meet the people. And we will pay for that. We will provide that tour for you. But but in exchange, you need to recognize the legitimacy of the state of Israel. And he did. And so that was the deal. So I have that photograph in my office of that meeting in the Oval Office with my grandfather. So I would have loved to have heard his voice to describe, that story. And I could go on and on. My father's voice about what he discovered when he was arresting Nazis in Berlin after Hitler's death, including Hitler's personal secretary, Dr. Schacht, and collecting all of the materials in Dr. Schacht's office and bringing them home. So I actually have those materials now. So there's a rich Jewish history just in my own family, and each of yours as well. So I don't want to go any longer. I suppose I could do my own oral history standing here. I always say that there's 2 rules to political speaking. Keep it short and leave them laughing. And so, because I love the sound of my own voice, I'm going to go on for the next 90 minutes. And, I just did the 2 rules right there. Anyway, I particularly want to thank Lisa for her leadership in this effort and everyone else involved in the Jewish Historical Society. I'm going to do my own oral history, but it's, again, a great pleasure and privilege to be here with you this morning. So thank you very much. Are we going to see the video from Senator Solomon now?
Yes.
Okay. I'll leave the microphone right here.
Exhibit. I am actually in Germany right now, Hamburg, which is where my grandfather, great-grandfather lived until the Nazis came to power. And this is the exact site of the neighborhood synagogue. It's actually been excavated and then recovered, and they're going to rebuild the synagogue that the Nazis destroyed. So it's a very exciting place for me to be giving you this. And I would say, what we know is that most of human history has been lost to time. And that's a shame, because to understand the history is to see the future. And the lessons of history must be shared. As we dig in dirt for gold, history is the mind of wisdom. Jewish tradition is heavy on writing, but adding oral history brings texture, tone, and a deeper view into the past. And that's why I helped secure this oral history grant. And
That's it.
Hello. Hi, I'm Jennifer Saunders. Oh, that's a live mic. I'm with the State Historical Society. And I want to talk to you about oral history in a professional capacity and a personal capacity. So professionally, as the senator was saying, history is what is going to inform us as to how to move forward into our future, right? The relevance of history, I think, is what is so important. And oral histories bring us that first-person account. And in today's age, that first-person statement of experience and of knowledge of a specific situation or a period of time is absolutely critical, right? In an age of AI, in an age of misinformation, having an oral history where someone can speak to you and tell you what they experienced is so powerful. But I also want to tell you a personal story about the power of oral history. It starts with Oprah Winfrey. My ex-husband's grandmother was watching Oprah Winfrey when she brought on Steven Spielberg, who was talking about his new oral history project, the Shoah Project. Unbeknownst to anyone in his family, she called the phone number and they came out to record her oral history. She had not told her grandchildren that she was a survivor of the Holocaust. They just knew that she was an immigrant from Holland. She gave hours of testimony to the Shoah Project about marrying a friend of hers who was a Lutheran on the last day that mixed marriages were allowed in order to try to maintain some freedom. She talked about living underground, giving birth to his mother when they were living underneath the floorboards during the day. All of that was recorded for that archive. Fast forward to the pandemic, my daughter, Avon, who dearly loved her grandmother, who had passed away the year before, 3 weeks shy of her 109th birthday, was trying to find a way to connect to her even more, and was just Googling her name, and came upon the oral history in that archive, and listened to all of it, and came to understand that the Jewish faith in her family had stopped with her beloved Oma, because she was too frightened to share with her grandchildren that she was Jewish. And Ava decided she wanted to reconnect to her history and her faith, and started attending synagogue online. I didn't even know. Pandemic ends and she says, I'd like to go to synagogue in person. Starts going to synagogue. Avon is about to complete their conversion after 4 years of study. They became the first student in the Tacoma Public School District to learn Hebrew as their language. They actually are planning to study Jewish studies in college and potentially be a chaplain or a rabbi. We do not know the impact that our story will have when we tell it, but it will have an impact. So I want to thank you for supporting the ability for people to tell their stories, to share with future generations all of their joys and all of their challenges, and to have their lives reverberate throughout time. Thank you.
My grandfather, Paul Singerman, was partners with this fellow. One day the partner said, and I have a sister in Germany. I would like you to marry her. So my grandfather said, get a picture of her. This all took time and the picture came. So he said he'd marry her. And then he sent over money for her to come. And when she came, she took one look at him and didn't want to marry him. My mother told me all this. She wanted to go back home. She was embarrassed to go back and say she didn't get married. And I don't think there were the finances to send her back anyhow. This is from a 1975 interview of my maternal grandfather, Jack Friedlander. And I'm happy to say my mom, Betty Lou Friedlander Triger, is here with us today. And the interview was with the Washington State Historical Society's Jewish Archive Project. This is a wonderful example of how breadcrumbs have been left behind. It was an incredible trail for me to follow as I researched the stories for my upcoming book. There are bookmarks on the table, and its pre-orders are available, Barnes & Noble or Amazon. It's coming out in August. It's called Standing on the Crack, The Legacy of 5 Jewish Families from Seattle's Vibrant Gilded Age. I heard many, many stories about Paul Singerman, who immigrated to the United States in 1867 and moved to Seattle in 1874 to open a dry goods store. But I really knew very little about his spouse, Jenny Orbach. This interview excerpt tells me so much, and yet leaves me with so many questions. Jenny was born in Germany? Where? She was a sister of Paul's business partner? Who was that? Who was he? Where did he live? Paul paid for her passage across the Atlantic. Where did she leave from? Where did she land? Paul got a photo before he committed to marriage. Jenny got nothing. She wasn't too excited about when she met this short, balding Jewish man. She had no money to get back to Germany, and her shame would have been too great. So how did this shidduch work out? William Stadker was also interviewed by the Washington State Jewish Historical Society Archive Project in 1981. William was my great uncle, and he was one of 4 Stadker children, and the twin of my mom's mom, Elizabeth Stadker Friedlander. William's father, Victor, immigrated from Germany in 1885 as an 18-year-old boy, all by himself. As with what my Uncle William said in this interview, with a piece of cheese and a dime in his pocket. Victor moved to Seattle in 1905, and he opened up a wholesale millinery business down on Western Avenue. I'm going to quote Uncle William's interview. He didn't sound as funny as my grandfather did, so I'm going to use my regular voice. We used to have a great time. We did a lot of horsebacking in those days. Horsebacking was just a few minutes out of Seattle on 15th Avenue Northeast. Imagine that. I rode for years with Joanna Eckstein, Leo Krilsheimer, and Dick Lang. We rode almost every Sunday together. We'd have parties afterwards. It was a nice life, although it was now the Depression, and things were a bit more tough for young people. At that party was the Countess Waldeck, who was a cousin of my father. She was a very wealthy and charming lady. Of course, she didn't have any money now. Again, so much information, so many questions. Life seemed pretty good for young William and the Stadker family in the 1930s. What was my grandmother's life like at the time? What was Seattle like during the Depression? And what about the name dropping? Who were those people? Horsebacking, great. And finally, we had a countess in the family? What? This brief remark led me down quite a rabbit hole. Who was Countess Waldeck? How are we related? What was she doing in Seattle in the 1930s? If this piques your interest, you can read a series of blog posts I wrote after I did all this research about the Countess on my blog post, which you can actually find very easily on my website. Easy to remember if you know my name, KarenTriger.com. It's a really fascinating story. It was amazing. These are just 2 examples of remarkable discoveries from the vast store that was gathered by the Historical Society. There really aren't sufficient words of gratitude that I can state today to express my feelings about what the Society and its members did to create this vast store of archive for us. With this simple technique, interviewing one person at a time, I am gifted family stories and history that would have been lost forever. Without the archive, my knowledge of my ancestors would be incomplete, and Standing on the Crack would be a much thinner book and not nearly as much fun to read. I want to stress the importance of the work being done by the Society and this revamped oral history program, and thank them from the bottom of my heart. I encourage each of you to participate in the revamped oral history program, because now it's our time to leave those breadcrumbs for future generations. Thank you.
The oral historian at the Washington State Jewish Historical Society. I'm excited to introduce some clips from interviews that I conducted this past May on the theme of Jewish history and the importance of preservation work. I was totally in awe of the responses that we got. These folks talked about service, the importance of giving back, the Jewish practice of living the past through the present. They talked about tradition and also about change. Our oral history program has a great purpose: to record the voices of Jewish life in Washington today, so that they can be preserved for future generations tomorrow. Please enjoy a few clips from these interviews.
It's important to me, and I'll close with this, we are links in the chain of Jewish history, memory, and it's important for us to have the memory and the knowledge and awareness of where we come from, so that when we create our link, it's a straight line chain. It can't be the same because time and place change, but it's going to be recognizable and rooted in our history.
In Washington State, as someone who has lived here my whole life and who has been part of so many different aspects of the community, and so I'm kind of a connector, and I feel like that's what this organization is about, like connecting between the past and the present and the future, and connecting between all of our different histories and making a shared history. And so that's something that I just want to be in service of, and I'm really, really grateful to be called in to participate.
Why is important here?
I mean, I think a lot of it comes back down to my work in college of knowing that history does cycle back on itself, especially if we don't learn the lessons in our history. We're seeing that happen in this country right now. And the importance of making people understand the shoulders of whom they stand and how much work has been done to get us to where we are now that does need to be continued. The story's not over. The history's not over. Like, every day we're adding to it, and every generation has a role. But they have to know what happened before them so they can move the marker forward. Hopefully move the marker forward.
Is there anything you want to say about the Jewish Historical Society and the importance of the work that we're doing?
Well, I think it is important that we know. I mean, I think that our children certainly don't know anything about how these temples got started and who kept them going for all these years. I don't suppose there's really any way of doing it, but I think all of these things are important, and just what the Jews have done in this community. I think that if you trace them, there's been a lot of good done.
On a personal basis, it was sort of our practice and the relationships that we had and the customs that we had. It was implicit history and memory. So I guess everything that I grew up with, the foods and the synagogue services and the community events that we had and all of that were just not points in time. They were related to our history.
To that chain.
To that chain, yes.
Do you think that's a particularly Jewish way of looking at history or memory?
I think it's a universal way.
Okay, well, that was a beautiful note to end on. Thank you, Al, for such, beautiful words. Well, hi. For those of you who I have not yet had the pleasure to meet, my name is Hannah Peters. I am the Deputy Director here at the Jewish Historical Society. And I would love everyone to just join me in a round of applause for all of our wonderful speakers. Thank you again so much. I would also like to take this opportunity to say thanks and name a couple people. Shania, Ruth, Lisa, thank you so much for everything that you've done. Sarah, Isabel, Seth, all of our wonderful contractors, volunteers, board members who have shown up and shown out to help us move mountains to make this project happen. I also want to thank my husband for your patience as I spent this past year both planning our wedding and managing this project. Yes, thank you to all of you. But truly, Lisa, this couldn't have happened without you. Your vision, your guidance, your support, we're so, so appreciative, and I'm really proud to be able to work with you to bring this to life. All of I also want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your Sunday to be here with us. None of this work is possible without you. With your support, your stories that you add and contribute to make the rich tapestry that is the Jewish community of Washington State. Because that we rely so much on your support for this, if you have not yet had the opportunity to do so, please check out our fundraising table that we have moved. You will see it on your way out. You can come find Mimi or Lisa if you have any questions about the multitude of ways that you can get involved with our work. A few extra reminders. There is dessert and to-go containers if you would like to take any of this delicious food with you on your way out. And we also put together some bags with some of our previous books and handouts and some other goodies in there, so please grab one on your way out. Please follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter if you're not already subscribed to stay up to date with all of the work that we have planned for the rest of the year and years to come as we continue to preserve these stories for generations. Also, speakers, we have flowers for you. Please grab them on your way out. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah, for your amazing work.